this video is going to take a very quick look at quadratic word problems. Although I know that most of you can do these without any instruction, I just do want to give you a couple tips, and then I will work out the solutions to a couple of examples just to give you some modeling here. Quadratic word problems. We're basically going to solve them the same way we've been solving algebraic word problems. And you've done some of those with Pythagorean theorem in our last unit. So basically, to solve a quadratic word problem, I do have a couple tips for you. When it says integer, you really have to pay attention to what the question is asking for. You get a lot of clues on what your answer should look like from the question. So if it says integer, you should be able to factor that. You should not have to use the quadratic equation. If the question says positive integer, you will solve it all the way, but you will reject the negative answer in the end. Okay? And you have to show that reject step. When solving word problems that involve measurement, there can be no negative answers, so you will go back and reject the one that's negative. So the steps to solving these would be to draw the figure. You write your let statements or use x's within the drawing and then solve the quadratic. You would reject any negative roots. So let's take a look at an example quickly. Find two consecutive integers such that the sum of their squares is 61. So if they're two consecutive integers, remember that's x equals the first consecutive integer, and x plus 1 would be the second consecutive integer. The sum of their squares, so x squared plus x plus 1 quantity squared equals 61. So you can practice this one on your own. You'll have to square both of those expressions and solve. Why don't you pause here and do that? So you should get x equals -6 and x equals 5. What does that mean? It means my two consecutive integers are x equals -6 and x equals -5, or x equals 5 and x equals 6. So I could have two possible pairs of answers there. Here's a word problem involving geometry. The height of a triangle is 4 less than the base. So my height is 4 less than the base. Here's my base. Here's my height. If the area is 160 inches squared, find the measure of the hypotenuse in simplest radical form. They're being specific. They're telling you simplest radical form. So that gives you some clues. So this is almost like a two-step question. The first thing you need to do is you know that the area is 160 inches squared. So I know that x minus 4 times x 1/2 of this is 160. I'm just going to multiply by 2, so I get x squared minus 4x equals 320. So x squared minus 4x minus 320 equals 0. And then I'm going to factor that, hopefully. And I get x plus 16 and x minus 20 if I work out that factoring. So x would be -16 and x equals 20. Here's where I show reject a negative value for x, and then I can go ahead and find my hypotenuse. C squared equals 20 squared plus 16 squared. So if I solve that, I get c squared equals 656. Taking the square root of that, you would get 4 radical 41. I do want to look at one of these problems also because it relates to answering the question. I'm going to do number 3 with you. And if you look at number 3, this is in your practice packet, I believe. Rahul threw a ball into the air from the top of a building. So he's at the top of a building. Okay, and he's throwing a ball into the air this way. So the ball's going to go up a little, and then the ball is going to come down like that. An equation for the altitude h of the ball is given by this equation. H, the height, equals -16 t squared plus 64t plus 60. where t is the time in seconds. What is the maximum altitude of the ball? Well, to find the maximum altitude, it's somewhere up here, right? We call that the vertex. So I need to find the vertex of this parabola, and in order to find the vertex, it is x equals negative b over 2a. Well, in this case, I'm going to use t, not x, so t equals negative b over 2a, which is negative 64 over 2 times negative 16. If I work that out, it's 2. What does that mean? It means the ball reaches its maximum height at 2 seconds. Well, that's not what the question asks me. The question is, what is the maximum altitude? So to get that altitude, I have to plug back in to get the height. And that's going to be negative 16 times 2 squared plus 64 times 2 plus 60. And if you work that out, you should get 124 feet. And that is the answer. Okay, we are going to do more with projectile motion, but these questions are really just plug and chug. So you could work on those, and you could work on the questions that are in a grid form in the practice packet, and I will post an answer key for those. Have a great night, everyone.